Traci Reed here today, and we are going to be using the brand new Island Time collection to take this layout that I designed in Photoshop using a template from the Nifty Pixel as a base, and we're going to take it into real life and kind of see how that process goes, as well as how the layout ends up changing. So this is where we're starting. I already went ahead and made this layout, or the foundation for this layout, in Photoshop using that template. If you're interested in seeing how I work in Photoshop, there are quite a few videos of me digital scrapbooking on this channel as well as on my website. So I went ahead and skipped that part, and we're just going to start here and see how this goes from Photoshop to real life. Okay, so the first thing I did was go ahead and add some mixed media and print it on a 12 by 12 white piece of cardstock. And these are some paint strips, or some paint blobs, beads, and netting from the Island Time digital kit. And I'm gonna go ahead and use the template that I chose from the Nifty Pixel to cut out the heart that is in the background of this page, and it's going to cut like right here. So when it is cut, you will see like these nets sticking out, but all of this like repetitive paint from using the same paint thing over and over again, it won't be as visible. It'll just kind of stick out of the top here and out of the sides. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and come right back. All right, so we've got this printed out, or not printed out, cut out. You can see I'll take this heart off here, and it gets rid of a good lot of all of this repetitive paint, but I don't know, that's pretty cool. I'm going to keep it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to back this with, goodness, come off. You can tell I always use the 8.5 by 11 portion more than the 12 by 12. Okay, I'm actually going to back this with some foam tape because I want there to be height between this and the background that I'm going to put behind it. So we're going to go ahead and just put foam tape everywhere. And then once I get that sort of aligned here, I will back it with this striped paper that I've also printed on 12 by 12 because it's just slightly larger than 8.5 to back this fully. I'm just curving this around. I got this foam tape from Spiegelmom Scraps. It's pretty dope. She sent it to me, which was very sweet of her. And I love it. It's great for like sequin shakers, but it's also great for just this part. And I'm just making sure that I go all the way around the edges. I don't want to get it too close to the edge because I don't want to be able to see the foam. Might have to move some of this. Might be able to see the foam, but we'll see. So since I'm not keeping sequins in, see, that got a little too close there. Since I'm not keeping sequins in, I don't have to worry about it like being perfectly closed, but I do want to make sure you can't see it. Oops, don't rip. So we're gonna go away from the edge over here, just a little bit. Okay, now that's gonna provide support. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull the backing off. Yay for easy to peel tape. And then I'm actually going to just stick this down directly over this 12 by 12, and then I will trim it. Ah, too fast. Okay. I'll just trim off the excess when I get it put down, because, you know, you're not going to see the back of this, so we don't need to worry about all this extra stuff. I did get some extra printer ink over here, so I'm going to have to figure out what I want to do about that. Okay, there we go. There is the base of the layout from the template that we're using. Let me trim this. All right, perfect. Now I can start building the rest of my layout, which I'm just going to do using the printed bits and pieces from the layout that I built in Photoshop. So let's start that. In order to get these layers from Photoshop to my silhouette, I went ahead and created two new 8.5 by 11 canvases to sort of separate these out and create my own print sheets. I'm merging together all of the papers to the paper layers. Anything that was clipped to a paper layer, I went ahead and merged it just to make it easy to move around. And now I'm just spreading these out, making sure that they're not touching so that when I move over into silhouette, nothing cuts out as one piece that shouldn't. These are rather large pieces, so they're definitely going to need to be on two different sheets, but I'm not worried too much about the edges at the moment. I'm just trying to make sure I get everything as centered as possible, just so that when I go into the silhouette software, it is ready to move around and adjust as needed. So I have my two sheets now, and I'm going to save them both as PNG files. The first thing I'm going to do is add in a stroke to this found word so that it cuts out all as one piece instead of individual letters. So I just added a 10-point outside stroke before I saved the file. And then I'm going to go ahead and repeat this process with this sheet. And I'm going to go into Silhouette and open both files. And then I'm going to change the canvas size to 8.5 by 11 letter size, as well as turn on the cut lines, center everything on the sheet. And then this one's going to need a little bit of tweaking because it does go outside the boundaries just a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and right click and release compound path, and then just move everything around as one piece until nothing is touching and everything fits on the page. Once we are done with that, I can go ahead and print everything, and then once it's done through the printer, I can send it to the cutting. So now I want to rebuild my layout as best as possible in comparison to the digital layout, which I will go ahead and pop up in the corner here. And I'm also going to want to add my own touches beyond the template as well. So I'm going ahead and folding these papers like they were folded. You can see the shadowing that was printed on the papers themselves. So I just went ahead and folded them like the shadows, and I'm going to pop up the ends that are going over the heart on foam tape so that they don't sag in the middle and they have the same height as the rest of the layout. This is really the only part that I'm going to need to use any more foam tape on because everything else sort of goes around the outside edges. But I'm just making sure that this layout has enough stability. When you're working with foam tape and you have a lot of like height going on, sometimes the layout can feel a little bit unstable. So I just want to make sure that everything gets nice and stable in here. Of course, I don't want foam tape over foam tape, so we're struggling just a little bit here to make sure that this works, right? Perfect. And then I'm going to mat this photo with this sort of torn paper from the template as well. Now, it doesn't have to be perfect. I wanted a little bit more blue showing, so I matted it a little farther out than the original. And then the washi as well. Not everything is going to go exactly where it was before. That's okay. I'm wanting to make sure that it's close, but works in real life with all of the changes that I'm going to make too. Well, I'm not going to make huge amounts of changes, but the additions that I'm going to add to this layout. I had a little bit too much foam tape here, so I'm just going to go ahead and rip it off that part. And now, while I'm waiting for the rest of my embellishments to go through this silhouette, I'm going to go ahead and ink the edges of this layout with some Catherine Pooler ink to cover up, both to cover up that little smudge that was in the top corner, but also because I think it's interesting. I want a little bit messy, a little bit clean. I don't want it too wonky around the edges, but I do want some spots that are more inked than others. And I really think that actually that grounds this layout really well. I'm not a huge fan of white, like big white cardstock layout, so I think that this really sort of gives the layout itself some boundaries and makes it feel a little bit better for me. So that was a good decision. Now I've got everything cut out, and unfortunately I knew it was possible but the palm leaf was just too delicate to go through the silhouette without an extra cut line that's farther out, but I didn't want the white edges on the palm leaf, so the palm leaf didn't work out. And so we're gonna have to pivot just a little bit from the original layout. We still have the Monstera leaves. I'm just rebuilding the original layout as best as possible just to make sure that everything still fits perfectly and looks good here. But then I'm going to pivot just slightly and add in some extra things to make this layout a little bit more interesting. So you can see how delicate this is. It came apart in a lot of places. And so we're just not going to use it. I could have used this part a little bit, but I didn't really like the way that it looked. So I said, nah, we're going to do something else. So let's rearrange a little bit, not too much. I think I'm going to stick the Monstera leaves out a little bit more. And I'm going to I'm going to pivot away from that palm and add a hibiscus instead. And I want to make sure that all of these pieces have a lot of movement to them. I want the leaves to not be fully stuck so that they float away from the page and add some shadows to the page. So I'm making sure that I add enough adhesive at the base of the leaf that it will stick to the layout, but not so much that it sticks down too far and too hard and there's no lift on the leaves. Adding this Paradise Found. I loved this vacation. It was so good. Really was paradise. Probably my favorite vacation ever so far. Hopefully Hawaii is just as good when we go later this month, but this was Miami. And last but not least, this little tiny delicate bikini top. Cute. Okay, so now let's pivot away from the palm leaf and we're gonna add in the hibiscus flower instead. Sorry about the car driving by. We're gonna add the hibiscus flower, and then when I do that, the starfish doesn't really work anymore, and that's okay. I'll just put it to the side. I decided I wanted some textural elements to this page, so I'm going to add in this fiber, and it's going to be a small bow that I'm just going to go ahead and staple directly to the page. I like my mini attacher for this, but unfortunately, since I don't generally plan in advance, the mini attacher can't always get to all of the places where it needs to be. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my long arm stapler that I purchased as well recently. Sorry about my head getting in there. I just want to make sure that I get everything trimmed. My long arm stapler in there as well to add in some more textural pieces in weird places. So I want this ampersand and I'm going to glue it, but it's not going to stick very well. So I'm going to use my long arm stapler here in a minute. And then I want to add in some more pieces like this acrylic here. And I had a hard time getting it to staple down. It didn't really want to stay stapled. So I went ahead and stapled it as best as I could. And then I'm going to go back in with some liquid glue and stick it down as well so that it just stays nice and still. Yeah, that ampersand needs a little bit more stability. So does that. It just did not want to stick down. I'm going to add in some of these gems from my collection for Echo Park last summer. And then I'm going to call this good. It's looking good to me. I think I like all of the textural pieces added, and it's really a fun layout. So if you enjoyed this video, I'd love it if you give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, go ahead and subscribe. I'd love to have you. If you don't already, you can follow me over on Instagram. I'm at Traci Reed. The link to the blog hop is below, or sorry, the YouTube hop. All of the links are below, as well as the link to the blog post with all of the videos. All right, thank you.